Since this is the new group, we're going to start with.
So I started recording. Hi, everyone. I don't have any formal slides, but I've seen many of you. Jill Schimmel from the Office of Multilingual Learners used to be the division, and we're so excited to be able to we have 10, maybe 11 new schools in cohort 2, we'll call you. You'll be planning new Spanish for Spanish speakers program starting in just a few weeks, and we'll be providing a class set of the Galería 2025 edition. And so we have with us Justin Seifts from Vista Higher Learning, who's going to walk us through all the resources. So take it away, Justin.
Thank you, Jill. Yep. Thank you all for your time this afternoon. I know you're in full swing getting ready for school. I myself just finished our first teacher workday here where I teach in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I also am a Spanish teacher. I've also done a lot of work in the New York City public schools with AP for All, and done workshops for students from the Bronx to Queens. And so always a pleasure to be able to work with New York City's teachers. And let me share my screen with you all right here. So you should be seeing this Galería book. If you have.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I didn't remind them all to be logged into VHL Central.
That's okay, no problem.
But everyone on this call should have received an email that they're configured and received. Okay, great. I see some nods that you're configured and have full access to the VHL Central. So take a minute to log in if you don't mind. Thank you, Justin.
Yeah, for sure. While you all are, yeah.
So, sorry, Justin, I have a question. So Layla sent me the email for my account setup. But I have an account because I also use Temas for AP. So I have an account with my school's email, but she sent it to my old Google domain from my high school that we're not using anymore because we transferred over to DOE Central. So I'm wondering if we can merge those or she can bring that over to my school's email. Should I email her or is that something you could do?
I will email her and copy you. I will say that this initiative for you that we're providing the curriculum is kind of under one central account called the NYC DOE Pilot School. Mm-hmm. So if you have an existing VHL account because you've purchased other things, it may just be like a drop down that you choose from when you're getting to Galería. So I'll connect.
Well, but no, because she sent me the email with my setup to my Mather HSNYC email, which I used to have Temas under, but now we're in schools. So that
okay. So I'll make sure she transfers that. Yep.
All right. Thanks.
Great question. Feel free to unmute at any time and ask as we're going. Right here, for those that are not familiar with VHL Central, when you come to vhlcentral.com and you first will see that book there on the left side, you'll just click that Galería Uno book, and it'll probably bring you to a page that looks like this, where we'll set our course up together. Before we set the course up, I'll give you a brief overview of how Galería is set up, and I think more importantly, what kind of resources are there for us as teachers, but certainly what is there for our students to build their proficiency, academic language, vocabulary, and really the main spot that we'll go to look at the program and access all of our digital content for students is under Assign and then down to Activities. When I click here on Activities, now I'm in the program. And just the basic navigation piece, the top left is the drop down where we can see 8 módulos. Hay 8 módulos de cada libro. Dentro de cada módulo tenemos un tema y también una región del mundo hispanohablante. So we see here, for example, Módulo 1, the theme of the first unit for our students in this native speaker, heritage speaker program is our identity. And so we're going to talk about, or have students talk about, their identities as we're looking at other identities of Spanish speakers from around the Spanish speaking world, but in particular in this first unit, which is based on the Caribbean. So we're looking at Esmeralda Santiago, Jose Marti, Celia Cruz, people from the Caribbean, Nicolas Guillen, and then having students think about their own identities from that. So again, each unit tied to a specific region of the Spanish-speaking world, along with a specific theme. And we're going to just take a quick peek here at what's in each of the units. They are all set up the exact same way. So every unit always starts with they call it apertura de módulo. It's really just an opening video to let students know, what are we going to be learning about? What are we looking at in this particular unit? Let me try to share sound here and optimize. Okay. So every unit will start with this short video opener. We as the teacher have the option to add subtitles for our kids in Spanish if we want to. We can toggle that on or off.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Soy Nicolás. Eso no te dice mucho, ¿verdad? Quizás conoces a otro Nicolás o quizás tu perro se llama Nicolás. Todos tenemos rasgos que nos caracterizan. Algunos de esos rasgos son similares a los de nuestros amigos y familiares, mientras que otros no lo son. ¿Imaginas qué aburrida sería la vida si todos fuéramos exactamente iguales y nos gustaran las mismas cosas? Afortunadamente, ese no es el caso. Todos tenemos una identidad, por supuesto, como individuos, pero también como parte de una familia, de un grupo de amigos y hasta de un país. Y esos elementos, nuestro país de origen, nuestro idioma y nuestra familia, son parte.
So every unit will have one of these video openers. And I like them because they're very current, these video openers. This is the 2025 edition, so they're brand new videos. There's also parts in the video that will ask students to do some discussion, so we can use those as discussion questions. And we can assign these to our kids so that they can watch them. Really, the main piece, though, of every unit are the three different main fases. And within each fase, we're building that academic vocabulary, language, those skills that we want our native and heritage students to have. Fase uno, we always start with some kind of reading from that particular region of the Spanish-speaking world. So, in this unit, we are talking about our identity, and it's based around the Caribbean region. So we're going to read Esmeralda Santiago's Cuando yo era puertorriqueña. We don't ever just start with the reading. You could as the teacher, but look at all of these options that we have just right in this segment alone, antes de la lectura. And we have all of these different pre-activities we can do. The goal is not to do all of the activities. There are far more activities here than we need and even want. The purpose is so that we as the teacher can decide, okay, which one do I like? I want to use this, I don't want to use that. So for example, I'm looking at vocabulario. I want to make sure my students are ready for the vocab they're going to read, they're going to see in Cuando yo era puertorriqueña. Right here, if I like this activity, great, I can use it. If I don't like it, there are a number of other activities I can use. Let me draw your attention to this icon right here. If you hover your icon, or if you hover your mouse over an icon, it'll tell you what that icon means. For example, these three people right here, that means that this is a group chat activity. I really like these group chats because this is a way to get my students thinking, to activate prior knowledge. I can set students to work in a group, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 students in a group. And it's kind of like what we're doing now. They're going to have a mini Zoom session that's going to be recorded all within the Galería system. And then once they're finished, that conversation will get sent to me as the teacher and nowhere else. So it's safe, it's within the system, and then I can use that as a formative assessment, a spot check it kind of thing. So you see on this one here, we're talking about identidades. And so the questions here, ¿de dónde eres? ¿De dónde tu familia? ¿Qué idioma hablo en tu casa? So we can have students talk about those things in their group of 3 or 4 kids, let's say. But again, lots of different activities we can choose from. we always have a section when it comes to the reading on let's meet the author. I think that's an important piece on understanding, giving us some insight as the reader on, what is this going to be about? So we always have that meet the author piece. There's some, again, like prediction pieces, looking at the genre of reading. And then we always have the actual reading itself, in this case, Cuando era puertorriqueña. Now, when it comes to building literacy for our students, there's a wealth of research that says reading to students helps build their vocabulary and their literacy. So I can read it aloud to my kids. They can read it aloud to each other. Another option, all of the readings are audio synced. So students can have this assigned to them and they can have it read to them at home.
Cuando era puertorriqueña. Fragmentos. Esmeralda Santiago. Sueños de la buena vida. Agosto marcó el principio de los
In addition to all of the audio synced readings where the readings are read to us or to our students, there's also highlighted academic vocabulary, words that perhaps our students don't know because they're high level. There are also words that they would have practiced in some of those vocab activities. But what I like here is that students can click if they don't remember alucinante, and it will give them a synonym in Spanish, capullos. Okay, crías de los insectos. It will help them if they don't know that word. They don't have to go somewhere else to look it up. They've got that support right there. As we go through, of course, there are comprehension kind of activities. There are more open-ended activities. As you look through, to me, one of the most important icons here is that apple icon. What does an activity with the apple icon mean? Anytime there's this dark apple, the apple means that it's a proficiency-based activity. It's an open-ended speaking. It's an open-ended writing. That also means that it's graded by us as the teacher. It's la manzana envenenada para mí, porque tengo que calificarlas todas estas actividades con la manzana. Pero también esto significa, si no tiene manzana, entonces es la actividad calificada del sistema. So often, as I'm assigning this to my students, I'm looking at, okay, I know this is a tricky week for me. I've got a lot on my plate as a teacher. Let me find some of these activities that don't have an apple. Like any of these más práctica ones, for example, comprensión, because I know that those will be graded for me by the system. Those are not just nice for me, though. Yeah, I don't have to grade activities that don't have an apple. Those are nice for my kids because they can get immediate feedback and they can see right then and there when they submit which ones did they get right, which ones did they get wrong. As we're setting our course up here in about 15 minutes, you can set your course up where students can get 1 try, 2 tries, up to unlimited attempts. I personally like unlimited attempts for my kids. I want them to keep practicing, to keep trying, to feel the success of a 100. And then when I see that they don't, I'm like, Johnny, you have unlimited attempts. Why did you only try twice and you only got a 75 and you only spent 90 seconds? We see all of that data, including how long our kids spent on any activity in that grade book. So that's this first fase where we have the lectura. There's also always this section called Perfil de la Región, where we're learning about the particular region of the Spanish-speaking world. Again, this first unit is on the Caribbean, so we're gonna do a little video on El Caribe.
El Caribe. En el Mar Caribe hay un gran número de islas. Destacan, por su tamaño y población, la relación de estas islas con Estados Unidos ha sido siempre muy estrecha. Prueba de ello es el gran número de personas de origen cubano, dominicano y puertorriqueño que viven en Estados Unidos.
So that's a nice supplement if we ever want to go over some of the culture, some of the geography. lean in a little bit there on the region of the Spanish speaking world, and there are so many different activities that you'll see there. And again, I'll often find ones that don't have an apple and kind of hone in on those. Fase dos is always based on some kind of language structure. So we're looking at different estructuras here in our fase dos. What I like about the grammar structure pieces is not only are most of the activities that we can give students auto-graded, but there's also always some kind of tutorial for our students. Now, with the grammar tutorial, I may or may not play the grammar tutorial in class, but I like it as a way, at the very least, to supplement what I'm doing. And, you know, when I get a student that was absent and comes the next day, Senor, I was absent. Did you do anything in class yesterday? You know, yes, we sure did. We went over, you know, this grammar concept. I can assign this to an absent student, and that's a nice feature. You know, I can assign any of these to all of my kids, to a small group of kids, or to just one student. And we'll show you how you can do the different assigning. It's very easy. But I'll just play you a little clip here of what the grammar tutorials look like for all the different grammar points.
Los sustantivos. El sustantivo es el nombre que se les da a los lugares, cosas, personas, animales, ideas y sentimientos. Los sustantivos pueden ser primitivos o derivados de un sustantivo primitivo y un grupo de personas. Menciona dos sustantivos colectivos.
Again, we've got those three different grammar points in fase dos. There's always an ortografía, puntuación section. There's a lot of flexibility to the program. So please don't feel like you need to do every activity and every fase. That's not the goal, to do every activity here. And if you feel like, you know, your students don't need this particular estructura or this particular puntuación section, I like that there's some flexibility for me as the teacher. This section right here called Conexión con tu Mundo. And again, every unit is set up the exact same way. But this is a new feature for this new edition of Galería Conexión con tu Mundo. This is where we're going to have students do some higher order thinking, make some connections between their lives and what we're doing here in the unit. And so, for example, we are doing some talking about identities. So one of the pieces here is students can interview some of their own family members to think about their own family identities, or a community member, and they can do a recording on that. And when it comes to identities, they can talk about, you know, tú versus usted, and whether you assign an open-ended activity or an auto-graded one. You've got all of those options there. There's also a project in every one of these Conexión con tu Mundo sections. So if you want to do a project, at the very least, you have a jumping off point that is always found in this section, Conexión con tu Mundo. Fase tres, this is where we're going to build the level a little bit here, and we're going to continue on with those literacy skills that we want our students to have. So again, we never just start with a reading. We're going to do some background information. We'll learn in this case about Nicolas Guillen. Learn about his history, because that's what we're reading here in his poem El Apellido. You know, he had kind of a foot in each community of his background, and in both of his parents being of different races. So he kind of talks about that, and we want to introduce our students to that concept, have them think about those things. There's always the reading itself here in bold. Again, all of the readings are audio synced.
El apellido. Fragmento. Nicolás Guillén. Desde la escuela.
And again, those high-level vocabulary words that we had them practice at the beginning, they'll be underlined. And if a student doesn't remember them, no problem. They've got that support right there for what that means in a synonym. Also, lots of different practice activities to go along with it, from vocabulary to post activities. And you'll see there are multiple readings. So on that one, we had Nicolas Guillen's El Apellido. And we have more here to choose from. And again, everything from comprehension activities to group chats for our kids. And here's Majestad Negra. So again, we can have our students do more with this theme that we've been working with. There's this estudio literario section. So now we're going to look at a genre of literature, in this case, poesía. So we're thinking about, okay, how does poesía relate to what we've been doing in the unit? To me, though, my favorite section here in Galería is the Galería de Arte y Música. That's the one that I think my students can relate to, the one that they find probably more interesting, and they're not always as enthralled by literary concepts as I am, but they can certainly connect to, art and music. So for each one of those segments, there's always, again, some kind of video to open up what we're going on, as well as different kinds of activities. So in this case, we're thinking about the style of music we hear in the Caribbean, different styles. So we're looking at La Guajira.
El modernismo fue el primer movimiento literario nacido en América a finales del siglo XIX. Es popular de Guantanamera, una canción folclórica grabada por...
And of course, we can't talk about the Caribbean music without talking about Guantanamera. So we'll learn a little bit about Guantanamera here, where it comes from, why it's important. There's different kinds of activities that go along with what we've just learned.
La guaracha y la rumba. El término guajira también se utiliza.
And then, I like that there's always a karaoke option. Again, if we want to do that, there's certainly not a requirement, but I do find that my students kind of like the karaoke piece.
Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera. Yo soy un hombre sin...
And there's always two versions of karaoke. So we can give them the one with the lyrics. We can give them the one without the lyrics if we want to raise the level and kind of have a little bit, maybe a competition kind of thing, and see how our students do that. But there's always that karaoke piece in that Galería de Arte y Música, in that music section, along with, if karaoke isn't your style, no problem. You'll notice there's a number of other kinds of activities, where students can answer some questions about what we learned in the video, what the song is about. Every unit of Galería always culminates here with this section on the fase final. It's kind of the fourth fase. From the repaso del módulo, where again, we have another video. We started with an opening video. We're going to close with a video to kind of wrap.
Una escena de jungla se revela en la fachada de...
Dos o culturas diferentes. ¿Puedes dar un ejemplo de cómo tu herencia cultural es parte de tu identidad?
And again, I like that in these videos, it's not just students watching the video, but, we're pausing, and I'm, as the teacher, going to pause here and ask my students, 5 minutes, turn and talk. Vamos a discutir un ejemplo de cómo tu herencia cultural parte de tu identidad. Let's have our students share a little bit. I could do this as a quick class discussion. I could assign this and have students turn something in there. But just kind of culminating piece, and then different activities to go along with that. If we're thinking about the end in mind, I think it was Yvette talked about, she teaches AP. So what can our students do to prepare for AP in our native and heritage speaker courses? You'll notice those activities are built in, whether it be la conversación simulada, which we have here, basically. Another one, students have to be able to write a formal email on the AP exam. So again, we've got that email practice, multiple choice practice from reading, listening, comprehension. We're getting them ready right from our heritage speaking class for that AP end in mind. The end of each unit, we always have a full list of identified vocabulary from that entire unit. So from here, we could print it off if we wanted to, and it's quite a few words in every unit. We could also have it read to students. And so those you'll find right here at the end of every unit. We wanted to give you a quick walkthrough, and that's how all of the units are set up. So they're all set up in that way, again, with a unit opener video, 3 different main fases with activities in each one, from the reading at the beginning to the gramática, the lenguaje, the ortografía, puntuación, and then 2 more fases highlighting our literature, academic vocabulary, literacy skills, and then culmination piece to pull everything together. 8 different módulos is what they call them, but really unidades. The last one you'll notice here is called News and Cultural Updates. Pero de hecho, News and Cultural Updates is not a módulo. It's not even connected to the specific modules in Galería. I like News and Cultural Updates because this is where we find an authentic resource, really a big bank and pool of authentic resources that we can pull in whenever we want to, and there's something new there every month. So every month, Vista finds a new authentic resource, scaffolds it across different ACTFL proficiency levels, creates activities to go along with it. What does it look like? Let me click right there for a moment so you can see, and then we'll make sure we've got our courses set up. But right here, every month, here in just a couple weeks, as you all start your school year, you're going to see a new one in September under the current school year. But again, something new here every month, usually some kind of current event or something like it. And there's always an archive from all of the previous years. You've got a big archive, so you never lose ones from previous years, but there's more here than you can ever get to. You know, I like this one from a previous
Does your internet
from a previous year.
bill keep getting higher?
The ratas gigantes. And you'll notice they're from all around the Spanish-speaking world. So students will hear Spanish from different parts. You know, I'll show you just a little clip of this one on the ratas gigantes de Argentina.
Están viendo el mayor roedor del mundo. Manadas de carpinchos o capibaras han irrumpido en una de las urbanizaciones más exclusivas de Buenos Aires. Los vecinos denuncian una invasión de ratas gigantes. Y de hecho, decenas de estos pacíficos y tranquilos roedores que se alimentan de hierbas y plantas campan.
Venimos a
right here about the carpincho activist.
defender a los carpinchos porque son ellos los dueños del humedal que vinieron vendiendo.
They're always kind of short, you know, we're thinking AP length 2 to 4 minutes usually. I can ask students about, you know, do you know about carpinchos? To, you know, why did she say ellos? And what is Argentinian Spanish like? You know, so we have everything from the carpinchos, ratas gigantes in Argentina to, you know, I like this one from a previous October about a TikToker who goes viral. They're talking about what it's like to live with Tourette syndrome as a high school student. So this is another one that I like to
Hoy es lunes de motivación. Te pregunto algo, ¿alguna vez te has sentido que eres diferente a los demás? Pues tal vez esa diferencia te hace único y, ¿por qué no, viral? Es el caso de Felipe Suazo Lolito, quien comparte sus videos en su cuenta de TikTok y tiene casi 4 millones de likes o me gusta.
Cuando no, reírse de los tics. Recuerden que el síndrome de Tourette.
Ay, Lolito.
So there's a huge archive in there from like we said, anything from ratas gigantes to TikTokers to there was something on the Taylor Swift concert. To right here, I also like this one, Las Cholitas, the indigenous women of Bolivia who are trying to reimagine for the world what does it mean to be an indigenous woman, and they're climbing Mount Everest. So there's tons here just within News and Cultural Update, a great wealth of resources, something new every month, activities created for us. So feel free to peruse at any time. You'll notice each one is also connected to one of those 6 AP course themes, but you can really use them at any point as you're doing your native and heritage speaker class. So we wanted to give you a brief overview on how the units are set up, as well as what that last unit looks like, which again, really isn't a unit. News and Cultural Updates, we can use at any time. How do we get started? We want to give this to our kids. I want to get this set up for my classes. What do I do? Let's come back here for a moment to the dashboard. I'm going to click right here on dashboard. You'll probably notice, if you haven't set anything up yet, yours says no sections yet. I want to help you all get started by setting our courses up together. How do we do that? We're going to first start by clicking this red book that says Add Course. When I click here on Add Course, I might get a pop-up that says Express or Custom. Always choose Custom. And then it brings us to this screen right here. All we need to do here is put our course name. This is my Heritage Level 1. We can leave everything else as is, just change the end date. My school year ends middle of June. So change your end date, set your course name. That's all you need on this page. Once you've got the course name and the end date, let's click Next. If we move too fast, if you have a question as we're going, please feel free to drop something in the chat to unmute, and we'll be glad to explain anything that would be helpful. But now we're on this page where the word content is underlined. The majority here will have already been set for you by Layla, who's your Vista rep. But the part that you might want to change is if you scroll down. Again, we're going to leave pretty much everything on this screen exactly as is. But scroll down for a moment to this one that says Media Settings. This, I think, is the only spot we might want to change something. This first one that says Audio Support. When your students are doing some kind of listening, do you want them to have a button that they can click and they're going to be able to see a transcript of everything they're listening to? In other words, they can follow along reading the Spanish that they're hearing. If you want them to have that option, we're just going to check that box. If you don't want them to have that option, you want them to really hone in on listening and not have the transcript, you can leave it unchecked. Similarly, for the video support, there's lots of videos as we saw. On those videos, do we want our students to have subtitles, the option of subtitles in Spanish? If you do, you can leave that there. The transcript option right below it, I like this one even a little bit more. This looks kind of like this, where students are watching the video, and then there on the right side, they can see all of the language there at once, and it's kind of karaoke style, where they're going to follow that yellow-green bar as the video goes. If you want to provide these transcripts in Spanish during the videos, you can allow that right here. You'll notice you can also provide subtitles and transcripts in English if you want to do that. So up to you how you want to do that. Side note, you can always change anything. Everything we're doing, you can change very quickly and easily. So I'm going to turn on subtitles today and I'm going to turn them off tomorrow, kind of thing. Other than the media settings here, let's leave everything else exactly as is. Scroll all the way to the bottom and click Next. When I do that, now I'm on a page where the word gradebook is underlined. We do need to set up some kind of gradebook here in our Galería. Let's scroll to the bottom. We need to put at least one category in our gradebook. You could do multiple categories. I think just for simplicity, I like to do just one category. How do we do that? How do we start setting up a category? There's this blue button right here that says Add Category. I'm going to click right here where it says Add Category. First thing I do, I'm going to name my category. I'm going to just create one category that's called All VHL Work or Classwork, Trabajo de Clase, name it whatever you want to. Again, we can change the name later. We can add another category later. We can change anything we do. Just for simplicity, give it some kind of name and then click Next. This next one, weight. I'm going to put in 100 here so that it gets 100% of the weight in the gradebook. If you want multiple categories, you might do 50 here percent, but for me, I'm going to do 100%, so it gets all the weight, and I'm going to click Next. Category grading. Let's leave this exactly as is. This just means students will see a percentage right and wrong. Good. We're not going to change anything. We're just going to click next. Category attempts. This one's important. How many tries do we want to give our students on the tareas, trabajo de clase, las cosas que hacemos cada día, calentamiento al principio, how many tries do we want to give our kids? The default, they get 2 tries, meaning they have, let's say multiple choice questions with the reading. They try once, they turn it in, they see how many they got right and wrong, and they can see which ones they got right and wrong. They have that second try. Yeah. We can change it to where they just get 1 try. Again, for me personally, I like unlimited because I want them to continue to try and to practice and to get a 100, but totally up to you how many tries you want to give them. Once you've decided category attempts, we're going to come down and click next. When I click next, category strictness comes up. This one for the activities that are graded by the system, which is quite a few activities. How strict do you want the auto grade to be? You'll see right here, accents. Right now, if an accent is wrong, it's going to mark the answer wrong. Do you want that? If not, you can uncheck that. Capitalization, punctuation. Do you want it marked wrong, an answer, because a capitalization is wrong, or punctuation is wrong? Totally up to you. I will say the system is very particular. So if you mark accents, it will mark wrong every time a student adds an accent when they shouldn't, or vice versa. So just be careful there. But once you choose how you want the auto grade to work, click next. Jill.
Sorry, I raised my real hand instead of my virtual. So since this is the first time, I mean, Yvette's experience in teaching heritage courses, but this is a different way of teaching, right? And we're valuing all the authentic language that students bring in. They may or may not be using accent marks in their daily life. So how do you approach this, or how do you preface this in the beginning of the year with your students?
Sure. What I personally do, and again, take it with just a tiny grain of salt, but for me personally, I like to uncheck this one at the beginning of the year, particularly because, my students don't know me yet. I don't know them yet. And I want to make sure that they don't shut down here at the beginning when I'm assigning them things, because in trial and error, I found that at least for my kids some years when I'm particular, because to me, accents are important, that's going to change a word. Nevertheless, sometimes my students, even though I give them an unlimited amount of tries, they come back, Senor, I gave up. I don't know why. It just kept marking it wrong every time. And they didn't know the rule of accent. We hadn't gone over it yet. They didn't realize how the system works. So for me personally, at the beginning of the year, I like to uncheck those. And then, come January, guys, I know so far I haven't counted off for accents. I've changed it. So now it's going to mark it wrong every time, kind of thing. So that's just kind of me personally. And then the one other thing I'll say about it, when I'm thinking about the end in mind, how do we grade the AP exam, and what role do accents play when we're grading the AP exam? Because I also do a lot of work with the College Board, because I think that's important for us to keep in mind is, how are we grading and assessing from the College Board side? And I don't know, there may be other AP readers here, but really when we're thinking about the AP exam, accents are extremely low on the totem pole. Even though for me as a teacher, I'm fascinated by the rules of accents and I love that kind of thing. And I don't always know why my students don't have that same passion. But I realize that they don't always, nor does College Board. We don't, we're really, when we're grading the AP exam, it's task completion. It's accuracy and variety in grammar. We account for errors. Students can definitely get a 5 and have errors. We're not looking for perfection to get a 5. So, all of that is to say, I like to caution teachers in general by being too strict, especially at the beginning of the year here with the auto grade.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. anyways, that's probably more than you wanted. That's long story, not short there, but that's kind of the category strictness. And once you've decided on the category strictness, then we can click next. This next page, feedback. Let's leave this exactly as is. This just means students will receive feedback from the system that's provided for them. That's great. I want them to get feedback from the system, especially if I don't have to always give it. We'll just click next again. The last one here is your late work policy. Do you accept late work? If you do, is there a penalty? The default, you accept late work with a 5% off per day. If you want to change that, you can give them 10% off per day kind of thing, or, whatever you want to give them. Once you've decided your late policy, we're going to come down and click the Save button. When I click Save, now there I see, there's my category that I just set up. If I want to set up another category, I'd click that blue button and do the same process again. For me, I'm just going to do one. I've got that blue bar at 100, so I'm going to click the blue Next button at the bottom. When I click that blue Next button, now I'm on a page where the word summary is underlined. Nothing we need to do here. It's just a review of everything we've done. Scroll all the way to the bottom and click the blue Save button. When I click the blue Save button, there'll be a pop-up. Do you want to create a section? We do, because this is where we're going to add first period, second period, and our whatever classes. So let's click yes. What is the first heritage class that I teach? That's all I need. I just need the period. Right here on section name, that's the only thing I need. It's going to be my second period. Once I put in the period, I'm ready. I'm just going to scroll all the way to the bottom and click Submit. When I click Submit, now I've created my course. Here on the left side, there's the course that I just created. And here in the middle, there's my second period. Now, I teach multiple classes of heritage speakers. I've got my second period there. I want to add my fourth period. How do I do that? This plus sign right here next to sections. I'm going to click that plus sign. And now I'm back and I can add another section. And this one's for my fourth period. Again, that's all we need to create a section. Just the name. Scroll all the way to the bottom and click Submit. Y ya está. Ya tengo mi clase de segundo periodo, cuarto periodo, y ya estamos. Any questions on the course setup or adding our periods? Oh, let me see. Same grading. Great question. The same grading does apply to all of our classes. So second and fourth period will have those same categories, the same weight, the same late policy, etc. Yep, exactly. Gracias, Brady. ¿Otra pregunta? Great. If not, oh, let me see. There may have been another one. Oh, got it. De nada. Couple things. How do we get our kids enrolled? I've got my classes set up now. How do I get my kids in? Right here. Vamos a segundo periodo. Aquí el engranaje al lado del periodo. If I click that cogwheel, one of the options is instructions for students. So, the first day of class, or more like for me, the second week of class after I've done the icebreakers and things, then I'm going to get my students enrolled in the course. How do I do that? I'm going to post this. I'm going to put this on the whiteboard, these instructions for students. When you click that, you'll see that is specific to your class and to your sections that you just created. So for me, mine says my name, it says the period that I'm going to have them enroll in, the course name that I gave the class, and then it's got steps for students. If these are some kids that I've taught before in Temas and now they're in Heritage for whatever reason, they have an account, they can use that returning student. For most of them, they're probably new students to Vista, in which case they're going to follow this new student instructions. They go to vhlcentral.com, they register, they create an account. Yours right here will say your school name. They follow that, they find your course and period, and they enroll themselves. So I'll put this on the board, you know, again, second week of class, we'll spend 5-10 minutes making sure everyone has an account. And then I'll see as they're going in, I'll refresh the page and I'll see more students getting enrolled as they go. What then do we see on our teacher end? How can we assign those activities? What do assessments look like? What kind of different resources do I have for my kids? I want to address all of those questions right here. Quick review. Where do I go as the teacher to find all of the digital content? I want to assign a classwork. I want to give them homework. I want to show them the readings. Where do I go to find really everything I need for homeworks, classworks, and daily activities? Assign and down to activities. This really is where we're going to find 90% of everything we'll need. You know, this is where we find all of the homeworks, all of the classworks, and anything we want to give out to our kids. So let me click right here again. You'll notice it brings us right back to that unit we were just in before. Choose the correct unit you'd like to be in, and here we go. Now, how do I assign something to my kids? You know, maybe we're ready to do some estructura section. I want to assign them the grammar tutorial video, and I want them to do some kind of practice with sustantivos en este caso. You know, raíces de palabras. Do I like this? Okay, maybe I like this one, maybe I don't. What about identificar? Great. If I like it, ready to go. Quick side note. On every digital activity, I can always add an instructor note. Why? Well, I like to do that as a way to kind of customize an assignment. You know, I can click right here and I can leave a note for my students. And I can say, you know, I can leave them a synonym, or I can say, you know, el clima, I can leave them a note for them. I can also leave them a voice recording. Chicos, no se olviden, por favor, de utilizar los apuntes esta mañana en clase. So that when students first open the activity, they're like, oh, what is this from Señor? No, chicos, no se olviden, por favor. Oh, that's right. We're supposed to use our notes kind of thing. So you always, on every digital assignment, have the option to add an instructor note if you want to, although you never need to. You as the teacher have the answer key on the top of every digital assignment. Obviously, students do not. And then, you know, sometimes my students would come in, Señor, yo no hice la tarea, yo no entendí la tarea. But now there's really no excuse because there's always this little book and page number at the top. Students don't even have to have a hard copy book necessarily. They simply click the link at the top of the page and it will bring them right to that specific page in the textbook that will help them with this particular homework activity. Here's those words we've been going over. Here's the different, you know, pieces of the grammatica on this section. They can also jump to any page that they want to, but it always has the specific page to help them with that assignment. Great. I want them to have this activity, identificar, and I want them to have the video grammar tutorial. How do I assign it to them? All I'm going to do is check the box. We can do multiple at a time. I'm going to come over here and click assign. When I do that, I'm going to see three options. Always the day it's due. You know, esto es para viernes. The category in my gradebook. And then do I want this to go to everyone in my Heritage Speaker class? Or maybe it's just going to go to Johnny because Johnny was absent. Or maybe it's just going to go to Johnny and Susie because they asked for some extra practice or need some remediation or whatever the case may be. But you always have the option to assign to everyone, to a small group, or just to one student. I'm going to assign this one to everyone, and I'm going to click Save. When I do that, now I'll see, ok, el video, gramática en contexto y también eso de identificar, estas dos actividades son para viernes. I can see la fecha and that I've assigned it. Great. What about when my kids say, Señor, yo no veo la tarea, yo no tengo el trabajo de clase? I, as the teacher, can always log in as a sample student and I can see exactly what they see. I can also log in as a sample student and show them on the board, okay, guys, this is exactly what you should be seeing. I'm going to log in as you. So we can log in as a student to see what they see. How do I do that? I'm going to come back here to dashboard. When I click on dashboard, I'm back to my home page. I want to log in as a student from my second period. Great. All I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down. Y vamos a ver las gafas. Right here with the gafas icon, this is where I can see, okay, I can view as a sample student right here. When I, as the teacher, click this link, it will pull me in, and now I'm a sample student in that second period class. You'll notice students' dashboard is a lot more simple than our teacher dashboard. All students see really is this one button that says start. So for them, it's very simple. They click the start button and now they're off and running. You know, here's that video sobre la gramática en contexto. También tienen esta actividad, identificar. They're saying, oh, what is this from Señor?
Chicos, no se olviden, por favor,
That's right, there's the notes. So again, this is exactly what they're going to see. Anything we've assigned, all they have is that blue start button and they're off and running. Now, if I'm logged in as a student, I want to go back to my teacher page. How can I jump back to my teacher page? Right here under the URL, there's this return to Justin Seifts. When I click right there, it brings me right back to where I was before on logging in as a sample student. So there's how we can preview it as a student so that we can show our kids, you know, again, guys, here's exactly what you're going to be seeing, and we can see exactly what they see on their end. Let me pause just for a moment. I know our fabulous Layla has just arrived, so I want to make sure you all know Layla.
Hi,
Hey,
Justin.
Layla, how are you?
Hi. Sorry I'm joining late. I was coming from another meeting. I really don't want to interrupt, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Layla. I'm the New York rep for Vista. I've been with Vista for over 11 years, former French teacher, and I've worked with Justin for several years now. So thank you, Justin, for walking us through this. If you have any questions, I'll put my email in the chat. But I trust that this has been going smoothly. So if you need anything, I'm here.
Thank you, Layla. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
So again, let's go back for a moment here, assign and activities. We've kind of done that unit walkthrough. We've seen how we can assign different activities now. What happens when it's time to assess? What do we do? What are our options for giving our students some tests? We have a couple different options. We can assign tests digitally. We can modify tests digitally. We can also download tests as a Word document, modify them, print them out. You know, if we want to do the old school testing on hard copy paper pencil, which honestly is what I do, and just to maintain testing security. But let me show you all of those different options that you have for testing. First, where do I go to find the tests? If I want to give them digitally, assign, and down to assessments. This is where I can find all of the tests and quizzes for Galería. Let me click here on assessments. When I click here on assessments, it brings me in. Now, we want to make sure, of course, we're in the correct unit. So we're starting here in Módulo 1, but you'll see Evaluación de ubicación. We always have that placement option at the very beginning. You'll notice that is not in the other modulos. Why? Because we really are only going to give that here at the beginning. Or maybe we want to give it at the beginning and the end as a way to measure growth, perhaps. You'll always find that right here at the beginning. But the bulk that we want is here in the pruebas and the evaluación de fin de módulo. So you'll always have those pieces right there. The other thing that I want to show you here is, all of the tests and quizzes, they're ready to go. Use them as is, great. What do they look like? I, as the teacher, if I want to see what is this comprensión auditiva, bien, voy a abrir esta prueba. Okay, great. Here's the listening.
Ejemplo. La isla de Puerto Rico.
And here is what they have to do.
1. En 1898.
Great. It's ready to go. We've been practicing. We've been going here on El Caribe, practicing the audio, the listening skills. If we like it, we're ready to assign it. What if, though, I'm thinking, okay, that's a long quiz, that auditiva. I don't have a lot of class time today. What can I do to make this quiz just a little shorter? Or maybe I want to add my own question or change an answer or, change the point value. Anything that I want to do to these tests and quizzes, I can. How? You'll notice this icon. I can simply click the paper icon, click make a copy, and now there is a copy of that comprensión auditiva. I'm simply going to go to the pencil where now I can edit. When I click the pencil, it pulls me into that test, but now I have the option to change the name, to shuffle the questions. I can delete them to make it a lot shorter. So now we only have, a couple questions. I can change the point value. I can add my own questions. Maybe I want to add my own true, false, free response answer. I can pull in questions from other units. So I could do a multi-unit exam if I want to with just a couple clicks. So again, anything you want to do to these tests and quizzes, you can. Always make sure if you make changes to anything, you save. But for example, there it is, my New York City listening quiz that I just modified, and it's ready to go. How do we assign it? Just like we do everything else. Check the box, click assign, and now we have those same 3 categories. Esto es para el lunes próximo. The category in our gradebook, again, is this for everyone in our class? Just a small group who needs remediation? Just one kid who is absent? And you'll notice you set the number of attempts right here. So the number of attempts we set when we were creating our course, that is only for the homeworks and classworks. That doesn't apply to tests and quizzes because tests and quizzes are by default always just 1 attempt. And then you'll notice, you can set specific time limits here. Maybe I'm only going to give kids 30 minutes on this. I can randomize the answers. So I'm looking at question 1, but my question 1 is not the same as Brady's question 1. So it can randomize answers and questions for kids. You'll also notice I have a student with an IEP, a 504. They get extended time, double time, let's say. I can right here set individual times. So my class gets, 30 minutes for this, but I know that Jill gets 50% extra. So I'm going to set the individual time for Jill to be 45 minutes because that's what her 504 plan allows her. Or Brady's IEP gives double time kind of thing. So that's how we look at the tests and quizzes, and we can assign them digitally. We also said you can download them as a Word document. So if you prefer to do that, how do we do that? Before I jump there, any questions here on the digital assessments? Great. Let's jump over here to the Teaching Tools tab. There's quite a bit in here. We won't look at all of it now, but one of them says resources here under Teaching Tools. Let's jump here to the resources under Teaching Tools. When I click here, now I'm going to see, okay, there's a lot of things. These resources under teaching tools, this is really my digital teacher file cabinet. You know, I can't assign from here. This isn't for my students per se. It's really for me. These will generally all download as a Word document. You'll notice you have the different modulos. So you have different resources for all of the different modulos. But let's scroll down and look at the assessment program. Right here, this folder that says assessment program, quizzes, and exams. When I click there, I can see all of those same tests and quizzes that I just saw. When I click it, you'll notice it downloads as a Word document. When I do that, that's kind of nice that it's a Word document, because now there is that same exact quiz that I just modified, but now I can modify it as a Word document, which sometimes for me is a little bit easier because the formatting I can change. I can add a picture, change the colors, anything I want to do. It's mine now that it's downloaded as a Word document. I could upload it to a Google Drive, share it across my PLC kind of thing. So all of those tests and quizzes, you have the option to download as a Word document if you'd like, assign them that way, but you could do either. For me personally, I don't do a lot of testing digitally just because, at every turn, I feel like there's a student finding a new way to cheat on a test. So I like to print them off, modify them, give them that way. But I do like those digital tests, particularly because that's how I'm going to give my practice quiz. I like to give a practice quiz before I do any of my assessments. And that's a great way to do a practice quiz for me because they're auto-graded. So my kids can see immediate feedback and then, okay, now we're ready to go. Tomorrow's the real thing and get ready for that. So multiple options for the tests and quizzes. While we're here in the resources, let me point out a couple other things. We certainly won't go through all of them, but I want to highlight a couple that I think are particularly important for me as a teacher. One here, if you scroll down a little bit, essential questions. In my classroom, in my district, we're supposed to have an essential question on the board every day for students to see. If you want those, there are essential questions done for you right here that you can, access those for all of the different modulos. Scroll down a little bit more and you'll see graphic organizers. Again, I think when we're thinking about the end in mind, preparing our students for the AP exam, for assessments, for the higher order thinking, we want some things like graphic organizers. There's quite a few. Again, you can download those right there. Scroll down a little bit more in resources, and we're going to see these I can worksheets. These ones are great. When we're thinking about that actual proficiency level, what is it that our students are actually able to do? This is great because I'm going to download this, and we can use this in a couple different ways. But I might download this, and before the assessment, I might give this to students, and I might ask them to assess themselves. You'll notice the rubric is already on here for them, but it's a Word document. So I can simply change anything I want to, if I want to, kind of thing. But the great part is that there are multiple can-do statements for all of the different fases and all of the different parts of the modulo. They are also identified by mode. So if I'm honing in on presentational or interpersonal or interpretive, I can do that piece as well. So again, I might print this off before a test, have students self-identify what they can do and what they can't. Another option, I might print this off at the beginning of a modulo. And as we're going through the unit, I might ask students to kind of just check off what it is that they can do as we're going. So again, I think there's a couple different ways we can use this, but I like that they're already ready to go. And let's say that, in this modulo, I'm not going to have time to do the conexión con tu mundo. No problem. I can simply delete that. This is fully modifiable. So however you want to use those I can worksheets are available to you, and there is one for every unit. As we go a little bit farther down, you'll see lesson plans. There are lesson plans done for you. And again, they're a Word document. So maybe I don't, love everything in the lesson plan that's done. No problem. It's a Word document. Modify it however you'd like. But at the very least, I like this because it's a jumping off point for me on thinking about what I might be able to do with my kids. Jill.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, this is a big addition to the Galería 2025 to have these. And I will say I'm working with a few of the teachers from cohort 1, and we kind of took this directly from the super site. Layla, I mentioned this to you. And we're kind of adding the wraparound piece, like what is a slide that you'd introduce this to students? Where's that direct link to that Nicolas video, for example? And then adding in some components of the testimonials, so yo soy poem, language mapping, things like that. So that's part of what we'll be doing on Friday and Monday. And I will have a Zoom option for those who can't come in person on Friday, but we'll take that great stuff that Vista has already created and kind of put in direct links to make this even more usable for you when you get them in September.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jill. That sounds like some great work, and it's going to be super helpful, I think, for teachers using the program. As we scroll down a little bit more, this one that says news and cultural updates. We looked at those news and cultural updates. This is where you can find the index of the news and cultural updates. What does that mean? Well, when you click on this one, the news and cultural updates index, again, you'll notice it downloads in this case and as an Excel file, but you'll be able to see all of those news and cultural updates. But there's a little bit more there. Not only is it the news and cultural update, but it's there with the date, and it has for all of them, an essential question, a can-do statement, some brief instructions. And so, if you're looking for something in particular, you're like, well, what was that Taylor Swift one? I wanted to do Taylor Swift, but I can't remember where to find it, kind of thing. You can search, okay, January 24, jump right to it. And then you've also got, like we said, that essential question and can-do statement with it. So you do have that news and cultural updates index, if that's helpful for you to find a certain one that you like, or for those essential questions and can-do actful statements. Again, you've got those pacing guides, scope and sequence. So a lot really there for you, but I really just wanted to highlight a couple of what I think are the main important things, at least for me as a teacher, for resources. That was just one of the things here in the teaching tools. Let me draw your attention for a moment to the Galería Teachers Edition. This is going to be the exact same thing as your hard copy Teachers Edition, but it's digital. And so right here, you can jump, of course, to any page that you'd like. You have that wraparound margin with answer keys, cultural notes, differentiation strategies. I also like that there is a search bar. So if I can't remember where to find Esmeralda Santiago's Cuando yo era puertorriqueña, I can search and I can see right from the digital search, oh, there we go. There's Esmeralda Santiago. And it brings me right to her. So that to me, and it's the same thing, like we say, as the hard copy, but it has that additional feature, which I find helpful, of that digital search bar, whether it's a grammar piece or a cultural piece or an author that I want to find. So you'll always have that digital teacher's edition of the Galería book. Notice this one that says Galería V-Text. What's the difference? What is the V-Text? The V-Text is the digital student copy. So you and your students will always have a copy of the digital version of the textbook. Students will always have that anytime they're logged in, as will you. And again, there's that search bar. So if you or your kids are looking for, where's the part on sustantivos again, because that's what Senor keeps hounding me about, well, there it is. And they can jump right here to, the modulo en sustantivos, and there they've got the notes, let's say right on primitivos, derivados, sustantivos, lo que sea. So those are the main things we wanted to highlight there in the teaching tools. While we're here looking at the drop down, what about this grade piece? What is grade and grading? This one is those actividades con la manzana. Any of those Apple activities, they will come here. And this is where you can find the spot to grade them. The other thing that I would point out is, if it's, September 6th and you're starting to use the program and you're like, oh gosh, I can't remember what Justin said about finding the teacher's edition, or how do I add a student again, or how do I modify a test or quiz? And you want an answer, as you're teaching. We're here for you. Jill, Layla, me, we're here to support you through the whole process. But maybe you want a quick answer, it's during class. That's certainly happened to me before. You always have under grade and grading this chat with an agent. So if you want a quick answer to your question, there's always a live human who can help you, walk you through step by step any question you might need on that link. But again, lots of other levels of support if you need anything. I want to come just for a moment here to the gradebook. What do we see here when we're in the gradebook? Now, you choose your class, and then you'll see all of the different grades that are populated. Of course, I don't have any grades at the moment. Let me just show you what a sample gradebook looks like so that you can get an idea on how this gradebook will work for your kids and for your class. One of the things that took me a couple months, if not a couple of years, to realize is when I first come into the gradebook and I'm looking for that comprensión actividad, I don't see it. Why? Because when you first click on gradebook, you always see an overview of everything in that gradebook, and it's listed by módulos. So you'll see in your Galería gradebook the general overview and the average of how students are doing in each módulo. Usually that's not what we as teachers want. I want to see the individual assignment. Very easy. Right here at the top, you're simply going to search by the unidad. So here in Módulo 3, I can see the different, how students are doing. Like we said before, you can see a lot of data on every single activity. So I can see on this one, this student turned it in late. I can quickly accept the late work and give him a quick 100. I can say, okay, he spent 2.5 minutes on it. It was 6 days late. He only tried once. So then I can say, okay, Miguel, yo he visto que solamente pasaste 2 minutos en esta actividad. ¿Por qué? Pero en este caso también no pasa nada porque sacó un 100%, So you'll be able to always see that data. I can reset it for them. I can also review student work. So I will always be able to see exactly the answers my students put. I can also leave feedback. So if I want to, I can leave written feedback. I can also leave recorded voice feedback. So I can leave a note for my students with a voice message and make them again hone in on the listening skills. Bien hecho, Miguel, en este número 1 con la insatisfacción estética en lo que sea. So, excuse me, you'll always have those options. So that's just a brief overview, very easy, but just wanted to show you what kind of a live gradebook looked like, and tell you about kind of my trial error process with the gradebook as a teacher. So that's kind of our quick overview here on what each of these drop downs means. And we've looked at the assign and activities. Again, we said assign activities, the main spot we want to go to for all of our homeworks, classworks, day-to-day kind of activities. We've got our testing piece there. And then the main piece, the resources and all of the different resources we can find for our kids. I want to make sure we pause here and see what questions that you all have. We certainly realize, I think a lot of the questions will come up once we get our kids in there, once we start to play, to practice. But do definitely feel free to play and to practice yourself. You can't possibly break anything. Everything is changeable. We can always go back. So feel free to try and practice assigning, practice unassigning, modify a test. Download some of those resources and change those up, especially as you're there on your work day on Friday and working with Jill to really get ready for your students to come. But again, let me stop here and see what questions that we can answer for you all.
Feel free to take yourself off mute.
Don't be shy.
And again, we know that I think a lot of the questions will come once you start playing, maybe on Friday as you're working with Jill on your workday. But again, we're here for you. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to let us know. And we're glad to support you however we can. But I think until then, do feel free to click around to play as you're playing and a question comes up. Again, feel free to let us know and we'll be glad to help however you need.
Yeah, we'll be having, I know that on Friday and Monday, folks, Vista folks aren't available in the time that we're together, but we can gather some questions. I'll give them some time on Friday to really click around and do that I can checklist that I
Yes.
have from previous sessions. So we'll go
Yeah.
through that individually and then we'll problem solve around that. And then I'll have monthly cafecitos with them. And so maybe I can Zoom you in or someone from Vista, maybe Laura or you, if you're not available, to really kind of ask their questions. So like office hours with Vista during one of those meetings.
Sounds good. Jill, quick question. I know we collected some questions from the first session, and since we have about 10 minutes left, were there any questions from that sheet that we can address with this group and share out with the other group, of course?
Yeah, I'll put it back in the chat. Did
Okay.
anyone, I see a few folks on it. I have an anonymous buffalo and anonymous kangaroo, and then Yvette, but I'll put it in the chat. Anything you added to this document or want to ask whole group? Again, no sean tímidos. Use of the subjunctive, right? And I added some notes on because the questions came up last time with the group on, was it Thursday? I mean, how it's an 8-module book. And so again, you are year 2, you're learning a lot. You're in a great place because year 1 was bumpy and messy and we learned a lot. And all the cohort 1 teachers in year 1 who saw their students 5 days a week got through 3 modules because there's a lot of stuff in the beginning, right? That unit 0 that we've created, I'll walk you through on Friday, like what does it mean to be a heritage speaker? How's this class different? Things like that. And they got through 3 modules. So you can think about whether or not this is going to be like a 2-year sequence for you, right? It also came up that after the end of year 1, students were prepared for the checkpoint B exam. And then some students are continuing after 1 year of heritage with Galería, even though they got through only modules 1 through 4, they're continuing to AP, or it can be a second year. So you decide, but we'll talk through that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I do have a question. I was looking at the module, so they are supposed to be taught in the order they are, correct? Or we can do some switching as the teacher.
We're going to suggest you follow that scope and sequence that we're building out. Yeah, with the unit 0 before unit 1 and unit 2. I will say there were some questions about unit 3, like, no, I'm sorry, unit 4 professions. Not many got to that, but do you have a thought or was there one unit you think would be stronger for a first year course?
No, I was just looking at them, and I previously worked with a curriculum where we were switching depending on the themes or what unit we were on. So that was why I was asking. But thank you for answering.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to try to teach it with fidelity as possible. Obviously, your students are all really different. They have different literacy levels. And to Justin's point earlier, the fase tres, estructura, and the grammar lessons, right? That was a place where a lot of the teachers last year really made instructional decisions. My students don't need palabras agudas, so I skipped that lesson, and my students needed more here. So that's the flexibility that is built into this.
Absolutely. As a reminder, I'm sure we went over this, but Caroline sent all of the teachers up with affiliation to New York City DOE pilot school. So you should, if you did do course creation, it should be under that and not your individual school name. This is so that Jill and myself can monitor those in cohort 1 and 2 that are piloting with Galería, or if it's not a pilot, just using it this year. It helps us monitor the seat usage with each teacher. And I said this with the last group, so I'll say it with you all. Last year, the super site was underutilized by the teachers. And so we're really coming into this new year with this new group, encouraging you to benefit from all of these resources and make sure that your students are also enrolled in your course. And I don't see how after Justin's training, you wouldn't want to just do it right away, because you're such an engaging teacher, Justin. But really, I think it makes the world of a difference to have both the digital and the print. So as you're working through everything, you know, Jill, that you've prepared with your team, it's just so important to get the students online. And, you know, with the Cafecitos and future trainings, once you've had that opportunity, like Justin said, to play and practice, like once you've dug in, I think new questions will arise. Oftentimes we meet with folks in October or like a couple months into the year because they've had some, you know, baseline experience with the super site, and then come more questions of just how to better understand and how to better utilize the super site. But really, I think a goal for this group here is let's use it. And we're here to support you if, you know, you hit any type of barrier or obstacle along the way. All right. I feel like unless someone has another question, we can wrap up. I know it's 5:24, so I'm sure people want to get going. If you have any other questions, Jill, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, just that, thank you. So thank you to Justin for walking us through this, and we do hope we can continue to call on you, Justin. You're great, and you know this inside and out, and you're teaching it, right? And so for Friday, right? So quite a few of you, I understand it's the summer and in person. Not all of you are in person in New York City. So on Friday morning, I will update the invites, but I'm just gonna, can I share my screen for a sec?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, my screen's a little crazy. So hold on, the plan for this Friday, and I will send this, but basically we are in person 9 to 3, right? And so it's really an overview, framing, things like that. But we're going to do an in-person ice melting, not just breaking the ice, but ice melting, like an activity. And then I'll have a 9:30 to a 10:30 option for folks who really aren't in New York City to Zoom in. And that's going to be like the quick and dirty, like highest leverage, like here's unit 0, here's this open sequence, here's what we expect, here's when you're getting the shipments, right? And so I'm working with Layla on the quote and the PO and things like that. And you can expect shipments, we're hoping by like that first 2 weeks of September, but you will have more than everything you need to get through those first few weeks with your students, with all the digital resources. So that is the plan for Friday. I do hope most of you can make it in person, but I'm trying to balance those of you who aren't there in town so that you can Zoom in. So please hold the time 9:30 to 10:30 on Friday. And then Monday is going to be kind of more of the same. I don't think we're going to need 9 to 3 on Monday. I was holding that time, but maybe it's just 9 to 12 with another Zoom in option Monday morning. So that's pretty much it. I will follow up with you with a more formal email to you, your assistant principal or principal who's been involved, just confirming your mailing address, including the superintendent, so they know you're part of this great initiative, and we'll be in touch with that. So Layla, I need to give you final numbers and finalize the quote and everything. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
All right. Hope you all have a great evening. Thank you again.